Welcome to Mission Minute News. I'm Dominican Sister of Mission San Jose, Jean Harris. First, the headlines. Pope proclaims Jubilee Year of Hope. Liturgy is divine connectivity. Pope Francis calls for a theology of love. Deep fake Christianity. Threats to religious freedom expand globally. SVD school in Brazil on rescue mission in Chile. Religious vestition and commitment. Pope proclaims Jubilee Year of Hope. At a solemn ceremony in St. Peter's Basilica on Ascension Thursday, Pope Francis proclaimed the upcoming Jubilee Year 2025, consigning the bull of indiction called Spes non confundit, Hope does not disappoint, to the archpriests of the four papal basilicas, the prefects of the Dicastery for Evangelization, and representatives of the world's 5,353 bishops. Since the year 1300, there have been 30 Jubilee years proclaimed by various popes, roughly every 25 years. Recent ones were 1975 by Pope St. Paul VI, 1983, an extraordinary jubilee marking the 1950th anniversary of Christ's death and resurrection by Pope St. John Paul II, 2000, also by John Paul II, and another extraordinary jubilee, 2016, by Pope Francis, a special plea for mercy. Jubilee years have a very long history in both religious and monarchical circles. I was touring in England the year of Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee in 1977, celebrating the 25th year of her reign. Hebrew history has very deep meanings in its 50-intervaled Jubilee years, calling for liberation, consolation, rest, and hope for the future. In fact, the very name Jubilee comes from the blowing of a ram's horn, a jobel, at the start of their Jubilee years. Next year's Catholic Jubilee will begin with the opening of the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica on Christmas Eve 2024. Then on December 29, the Holy Door of St. John Lateran, the official cathedral of Rome. On January 1st, St. Mary Majors, and on January 5th, St. Paul outside the walls. In the course of the year, Pope Francis writes, every effort should be made to enable the people of God to participate fully in its proclamation of hope in God's graces and in the signs that attest to their efficacy. The holy doors throughout the world will then close on December 28, 2025, and in Rome on Epiphany, January 6, 2026. Expressing his desire that the Jubilee might be an opportunity of renewed hope, Pope Francis recalled that pilgrimage is a fundamental event of every Jubilee, traditionally associated with the human quest for the meaning of life. The artistic masterpieces and beauty of creation that we see along the way will inspire us to praise God's wondrous works. The Holy Father asks that activities of the year include sacramental confession, the gaining of Jubilee indulgences to erase the residue of sin, the pardoning of prisoners, the abolition of the death penalty, forgiveness of the debts of poor nations, welcoming of the Eastern churches in the city of Rome, and an experience that the light of Christian hope might illumine every man and woman as a message of God's love addressed to all, especially the promise of peace, so needed in a world increasingly marked by violence, conflict, and even loss of the desire to have children. Liturgy is divine connectivity. Liturgists from Spain recently met with Pope Francis, who encouraged them in their sanctifying work to bring God close to all through the sacred liturgy as a personal and communal encounter with God. The Pope received professors and students of the Athenaeum University of St. Pacian of Barcelona in the Vatican earlier this month. In his remarks, the Holy Father underscored the incredible value of the liturgy and recalled his declaration of 2024 as a year of prayer in preparation for the 2025 Jubilee of Hope. It is important, the Pope stressed, that in your studies you reflect on the need to seek this union with the Lord and on the means that He, through the Church, has given us to achieve it. The liturgy also reminds us, he said, that this encounter around God belongs to all, underlining the connectivity between God and humans in liturgy and warning them not to be enslaved by letter of the law rubricism. Rather, they should epitomize fraternal love and humility and embrace the cross. We should, he said, allow ourselves to be shaped by God and touching the open wound of the Lord in the members of his mystical body before asking them to work to make our daily liturgy alive so that it may express, question, and nurture this relationship, with the result that our communities become tabernacles of God among people. Pope Francis calls for a theology of love. At an audience for members of the International Network for Societies for Catholic Theology, Pope Francis proposed 3 guidelines for contemporary theology: creative fidelity to tradition, a cross-disciplinary approach, and collegiality. Theology is indeed a significant and necessary ecclesial ministry, Pope Francis said as he met with members of the network. Composed of some 30 member societies and affiliated groups, the organization aims at fostering academic theology and theological research around the world. Pope Francis noted 3 reasons why theology is important today. First, it is part of our Catholic faith to explain the reason for our hope to all who ask, our hope being not an emotion, but the very person of Jesus Christ. Second, the epochal changes faced by an increasingly pluralistic society must be critically assessed in order to foster human fraternity and care for creation. And third, the rapid progress of science and technology, for example, artificial intelligence, requires us to work toward a common understanding of what it means to be human. Then he suggested the 3 guidelines for theological pursuits. Creative fidelity to tradition is the first. But because theology is living, it must continue to grow and incarnate the gospel in every land and in all cultures. Thus, the second guideline, a cross-disciplinary approach, listening to the human sciences and offering Christian wisdom for their proper development. This in turn calls for collegiality and synodality within theology and among other sciences. Finally, Pope Francis noted that the service of theology cannot be carried out without the recovery of the sapiential character of theology, wisely uniting faith and virtue, critical reasoning and love, a theology of love, because God is love. Deep fake Christianity. In an April 4th edition of NCR Online, Father Dan Horan, Franciscan, takes a close look at the Christianity of the religious right. He analyzes its wedding with Trumpian political forces, which produces a classic creation of a new religion. Any religion has several defining components: doctrine, or a set of beliefs and goals, a leader who purports to be at least charismatic, if not outright divine, a bunch of followers who align with the leader in fellowship and admiration, if not in full conviction, and finally, rituals that reinforce loyalty to the leader and fidelity to the doctrine. It is self-serving, even when it tries feebly to reference sacred scripture. It is a nationalistic, discriminatory, idolizing imitation of Christianity at best, and at worst, a danger to both politics and religion in America and possibly the world. It could be called deep fake Christianity. Threats to religious freedom expand globally. In its 2024 annual report, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom calls for additional sanctions on Iranian authorities amid new harsh enforcement of mandatory hijab legislation, and urges the Department of State to add 5 to the existing list of 12 countries of particular concern, CPCs, for their severe violations of religious freedom. The Commission is a bipartisan federal entity established by the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 that makes foreign policy recommendations to the U.S. government intended to deter religious persecution and promote freedom of religion and belief abroad. In its 25th report, this commission is calling for additional targeted sanctions on Iranian authorities and security officials by freezing those individuals' assets and/or barring their entry into the United States, in light of the increased crackdown on women and girls for defying the country's mandatory hijab law. In April this year, Iranian authorities launched a new hijab campaign called Nur, light in Persian, violently arresting women and girls who refused to wear it. This new spate of arrests came only weeks after a UN independent international fact-finding mission determined that Iran's crackdowns on protests against religious freedom violations amounts to crimes against humanity. SVD school in Brazil on rescue mission in Chile. On February 14, in the heart of one of the worst natural disasters Chile has faced, San Arnoldo School next door in Brazil, in the town of Belo Horizonte, came to the rescue. Famous for its history of service since its founding in 1912, the school took on Operation Chile in Biobío province near the city of Concepcion in response to a devastating fire that claimed the lives of dozens of people and left the region in chaos. The objective was to rescue and care for the animals affected by the disaster. 7 veterinarians from the San Arnoldo School of Veterinary Medicine, along with 2 students, offered their skills and knowledge in this crucial task. After 2 weeks of hard work and coordination, the rescue was complete, and team members returned to Brazil with hope for the animals and pride of having once again demonstrated their commitment to community service. Religious vestition and commitment. 2 sisters made their vestition or clothing in the habit and first profession as Holy Spirit Sisters in Ukraine on April 27th. The following are the reflections of one of them. Why do young people go to the monastery? When God touches your heart, you begin to feel a desire for deeper knowledge and spiritual life, and want to search and often come to the monastery to find this spiritual life. When you come, you realize, yes, this is for me. You can't explain it, just like falling in love. How it happened, why I love it, I just do. This is not a moment. A vocation is a process, serious work to realize God's plan for yourself. It takes time to unite with God here on earth. If I am with God, then God is here with me. A monastery gives you the privilege of praying often, while other people do not have such an opportunity because of their many duties. Sisters' prayers are not special, but they are constant, and if they are sincere, they will attract God's grace. This fact should encourage all of us to pray sincerely as much as we can. Communal prayer in monasteries is a powerful means of introducing you to a deeper spirituality, and such prayer is not closed to the laity. Most religious also take the 3 evangelical vows of chastity, that is purity, obedience, and poverty. Chastity is not just about the absence of a close relationship, but rather about having a place in your heart for an exclusive love for God. Poverty is not about not having, but about giving everything to God, not relying on things, but on God. Obedience is giving one's will to God while listening closely to the movement of God's Spirit in community. The monastery offers great opportunities, not so much for oneself as for the world and the common good. Monasteries are not an escape from the world and work. All people have a lot of difficulties in life, but religious work on them in close connection with God. St. Joseph Formation House relocates in Panama City. A new St. Joseph Frenadamitz Formation House was blessed and inaugurated in Panama City earlier this year. Having relocated from Nicaragua at the request of Superior General Paulus Budi Clayton, SVD. The community consists of 4 students, 2 from Panama and 2 from Nicaragua, soon to be augmented by 2 students from Costa Rica, all guided by SVD Father Michael Malik. During the inaugural blessing, Bishop Edgardo Cedeno, SVD, from the Diocese of Penonomé, spoke on the importance of mission today, St. Joseph Frenadamitz's legacy, and ongoing learning. He said the Formation House is like a mission home that follows Joseph's way of life. He had fully embraced the Chinese culture and language in the true mission spirit. Father Matthew Yang, SVD, Superior of the Central America region, led the blessing ceremony, which was attended by many divine priests from Panama City, parish lay members, and the public. Laudato Si effect in Madagascar. The city of Manajaran in southeastern Madagascar was struck hard by 2 deadly cyclones in recent years. The cyclones caused extensive damage to property, buildings, roads, trees, and crops. Inspired by Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si, and to raise awareness about protecting the environment, Divine Word missionaries are taking action. The SVD operates 2 hostels in Mananjari for students, mostly from nearby villages. The St. Arnold Jansen Hostel accommodates 22 boys, and the Blessed Maria Josepha Hostel, 18 girls. On March 11, the young residents of these hostels launched a tree planting initiative. They planted 600 young rosewood plants, also known as palisander, on land surrounding the hostels. These trees are environmentally friendly, attracting bees for natural honey production, and providing wood for construction. As environmental stewards, the students have pledged to care for the trees and prune them as needed. Can EVs save the earth? Saving Earth is complicated. Most of us have tuned into the need for it, but we're still not clear about how to do it. The advocacy nonprofit Earth Justice offers some easy-to-understand facts in its spring 2024 magazine on one of the ways we can save Earth. That is, driving EVs, electric vehicles. Fact 1. A medium-sized new EV produces less than half the amount of climate-degrading CO2, 48%, produced by an equivalent new gas-powered vehicle. The data coming from both operation and production. Fact 2. New gas cars on average get 32 miles per gallon, MPG, while new EVs equivalent MPG ranges between 52 and 72, depending on the different energy grids. Fact 3. EVs require fewer natural resources to be manufactured. The amount of metal in an EV battery is equivalent to that of a small microwave, and most of the metals can be reused and recycled. So, as we wait for EV prices to come down and federal and state rebates to go up, we don't have to wonder. EVs can help save Earth. Put the guns down. Advocacy for justice can be a challenge. How to voice your position? Nuns Against Gun Violence in Columbus, Ohio, came up with an effective method. The group, a coalition of congregations of religious women who minister in the area, has the clear mission to affirm the value of human life through prayer, education, and advocacy for common sense, evidence-based gun violence prevention. In February 2023, Everytown Research and Policy reported that 120 deaths and 200 injuries occur daily in America from the use of firearms. In January this year, the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence and the CDC state that the leading cause of death of children and teens in the U.S. is now firearms. The sisters pooled their resources and sponsored a digital billboard visible from Interstate 270 with the message, "Put the guns down. Nobody is winning. Let peace begin with me." We wanted to get the billboard up in April, thinking there is good visibility on the road and a high flow of traffic due to the solar eclipse, says Sister Gemma Dahl, justice promoter for the Dominican Sisters of Peace. Columbus has had its share of gun violence. The years 2020 and 2021 were particularly bad, explains Sister Gemma. Our hope is this will be one of the better years. The billboard gave us a way to publicly raise awareness. Rehabilitating San Quentin. The April newsletter of Death Penalty Focus had two intertwined stories about California's new approach to incarceration. In late March, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced that he had pardoned 37 individuals and commuted the sentences of 18 others, citing clemency as an important part of the criminal justice system that can incentivize accountability and rehabilitation. It looks like the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation agrees with this philosophy, announcing that it is retrofitting San Quentin State Prison, where 640 death row inmates had been serving their time, to improve living conditions across San Quentin to house people humanely. CDCR is considering two options for the vacated San Quentin: retrofitting, creating a mix of improved housing units and appropriate day use common spaces, such as kitchens, studies, and living rooms, to promote rehabilitation in the space, or tearing it down and building cost-effective modular housing that meets present-day institutional living standards. San Quentin has officially been renamed the San Quentin Rehabilitation Center. A very special shepherd. Remembrances of Bishop Thomas Gumbleton have proliferated around the United States and beyond. They've named his ordination in 1956, elevation to the episcopate 1968, commitment to the work of God in various positions, and death on April 4th this year at the age of 94. A common set of dates for just about any bishop. So what makes this bishop so special to the people of Detroit and beyond? Benedictine Sister Joan Chittister, whose order's headquarters are just across the lake in Erie, Pennsylvania, described his specialness. Everyone who met Bishop Tom left with an understanding that the world was his congregation, and you were simply lucky to have found your way to the center of it. I felt rising within me, Sister Joan continues, an aching sense of loss and an even fiercer sense of commitment to carry on what Bishop Tom took with him. The truth of the gospel, the cry of the prophets, the distinction between the spiritual and the religious, the institution and the faith. The wake and prayer service hosted by the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary in Monroe, Michigan, celebrated Gumbleton's lifelong commitment to living his episcopal motto, "Be doers of the word." Irene Gumbleton said about her brother that he practiced the gospel. And if we could all be that way, be doers of the word, and accept everybody and anybody, and be inclusive in the church, we would be a much better church. If you have a comment or question about any of our stories, please email us at missionminutenews@wordnet.tv. You can also post your comments below each video on YouTube, and we promise to respond. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon. Share with others about the channel and the variety of programs you enjoy there. Please join us every Wednesday for our online Eucharist and Adoration and Benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can always catch it later on YouTube. Also, send us your prayer requests or intentions for Eucharist by contacting us by phone at 909-383-4333, or send an email to mail@wordnet.tv. This is Mission Minute News. Until we meet again, stay safe and well, and may Jesus' love for you make you smile.